If you think making $100,000 a year means that you've made it, you're living in a fantasy from the 90s. I'm from the 90s too, and we grew up being told something very simple. If you make 100K a year, if you make six figures, you've made it. The golden ticket. Today, I'm going to show you some math that is going to terrify you. New economic modeling shows that for a family of four in 2025, the poverty line, the line at which you stop drowning and can finally keep your head above water and at least tread water, that line is no longer $32,000 a year. It's actually $140,000. So if you earn $135,000 and you're the only earner in your household, well, statistically, you're below the poverty line. You're living paycheck to paycheck and you're likely one layoff away from financial ruin. This doesn't make you the middle class, certainly not the upper middle class. It actually makes you the working poor. And that is very, very sad, because even though 140 grand sounds like a lot of money, we all know that with the amount of bills to pay in the modern world, it certainly doesn't go that far. So today we are going to audit the American dream. I'm going to show you the rigged gamma trap that destroys your quality of life. And I'm going to prove to you very clearly that the government is lying to you about the actual impact of inflation. And finally, we're going to talk about the ways to escape from this situation if you, like everyone else, is struggling in the modern age just to pay the bills. But first of all, we got to ask the question, why does the government always say you're doing great when we all know that we're struggling to pay the bills? This is because the government is measuring incomes and wealth and salaries with a ruler that's from 1963.
How old is it? At least 200 years.
Meet the Orshansky Formula. In 1963, the economist Molly Orshansky calculated the poverty line based upon the criteria that made sense at the time. Food was very expensive and occupied 33% of household budgets. Her formula was simple. She took the cost that it takes to feed a family and multiplied it by 3, and that would give you roughly what it would take to survive. And that's where she drew the proverbial poverty line that we've come to know in the modern context. Here's the big scam though. The government still uses that exact calculation to calculate the poverty line in 2025. The big problem here is that most households don't spend 33% of their income on food. They spend, on average, about 7%. So what's changed? Look, we've all gone to the store. We know that food's more expensive. Eggs are too expensive. Yeah, look, it's hard to go and look at the grocery bill jumping from maybe $150 to $200 to $300. That stuff sucks. But you know what really sucks? The non-negotiables, the stuff I can't not pay, the insurance costs, healthcare costs, automobile costs, rent costs, the stuff that you simply are forced to deal with. And most importantly, the stuff that's not being calculated into the way the government and the public system evaluates poverty. You see, the costs that have exploded the most over the last few years are what we call the non-negotiables: housing, childcare, healthcare. But the government ruler is broken. It doesn't catch that. It doesn't even measure it. So officially, if the government sees a family of four making $32,000, the government says, not poor. Try raising 2 kids on $32,000 a year. That, my friends, is absolute poverty. It is almost mathematically impossible.
What about that problem?
Oh, don't worry about that.
So first of all, let's throw away that 1963 ruler. Let's build a realistic budget in 2025 for a family of 4. Not an astronomical or fancy or luxurious one, but a real one that means surviving and not having to scrape through by the skin of your teeth. This is your basic, dignified life, whereas we would expect something to be above the poverty line. Now, strategist Michael Green actually crunched all these numbers, and I have verified them, so buckle up. In the 1960s, one income was plenty. Now in the 2020s, you absolutely need 2 incomes because the cost of childcare on average for 2 children in 1 year is $33,000. That's more than the entire amount that you're allowed to earn and be below the official government poverty line. In order to live a basic, dignified life for a family of 4, you'll need 3 bedrooms, 1 for the parents and 1 for each kid. Now, of course, this isn't a medically necessary thing. You can live in less than ideal conditions. But again, we're talking about above the poverty line, something that shouldn't be considered desperate. For rent or mortgage, plus utilities, plus maintenance, in any decent city with a good amount of job prospects, you're looking at $2,500 a month minimum, and that translates to $30,000 a year post-tax. Yeah, that's after taxes, meaning you have to make that much and more to pay the government before you can even afford rent. 2 parents working means transportation is twice as expensive. 2 cars, 2 insurance payments, 2 tanks of gas, or 2 batteries to charge. That's $15,000 on average gone. And you better hope you don't get sick, because healthcare is the real killer. Premiums, deductibles, co-pays, this stuff adds up, especially with kids. And the sad truth is it'll completely bankrupt you if you actually do get sick with anything significant. On average, on healthcare, American families of 4 are spending $11,000 a year out the door. So now we finally get to food, which was of course the original poverty line calculation, or most of it was based on this particular metric. A family of 4, and we're not talking about grass-fed ribeyes every night. We're talking about basic necessities to live a dignified and healthy life. That'll cost $15,000 a year for a family of 4 just to survive. Now let's get to the unspoken costs, income taxes, property taxes, all the taxes. On average, we're talking about another $35,000 per family of 4. So you can add it up on your own, but we'll do it for you right here. The total reaches $139,000 per year to actually provide for a family of 4 and not be living in a truly desperate state of affairs. So there you have it. If you make under $140,000, your family is poor. Which is an absolutely crazy thing to be true in 2025, because just a few years ago, I remember thinking that 6-figure salaries were the dream, were the absolute end goal, and that anyone making $200K a year must have infinite money. They must not worry about any expense. They can travel wherever they want. They can wear whatever they want. They can eat whatever they want. Well, that image has been totally shattered. And I know what you'll say. You'll say, hey, look, it's okay. I accept it. It's a steeper hill to climb. I'll just work harder. I'll get more promotions. I'll get paid more. And that, my friends, is what brings us to the next and most important part of this, which is what we call the rigged gamma trap. So let's say you're starting below the actual defined poverty line that the United States government puts out there. You make 30 grand a year. Now, because you're below the quote poverty line, the government provides a ton of programs and subsidies to make your life better. Food stamps, welfare, housing, Medicaid. Say you use these programs and you benefit from them, and then you work harder in your career and you're able to double your salary and get above the poverty line. You now make $60K a year. Boom, you lose all those subsidies. You lose the healthcare. Your effective tax rate on the gap between 30 and 60K isn't 20% like you'd expect it to be. It's actually 100%, because for every dollar that you've made more, you've lost an equal dollar in the amount of support from the government. This is where the concept of rigged gamma, effectively meaning that as you progress out of the poverty line, you actually have significant headwinds that stop you from really benefiting and getting ahead until you make an order of magnitude, meaning 10 times the amount of money, which is such a significant jump in earnings that most people will fail to achieve it. The government sold you the American dream, but then as you start to attain it, they actually keep pulling it further and further away from you the harder you work. If you want to look at it from a pessimistic standpoint, it's a feature, not a bug. It keeps people working harder, chasing after the dream that has evaded them for so long. It's like being in a video game where every time you level up, the bad guys just get harder and harder. And so while it was easy to start slaying those level 2 baddies, those level 2 creeps, you get into a level 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dungeon, and all of a sudden you're weak again, and you just need to stay on the grind. So what can you do? You can't out-earn a broken ruler. You can't save in a currency that's being debased at the rate that the US dollar is losing its value. So much so that $140,000, which was the dream salary just a decade or so ago, is now literally the working poor for a family of 4. Every time there's instability in the government, they're going to print more money, and that's going to make the steepness of the hill you're climbing even more difficult. So even if you make it to 200K or 300K, after taxes, which become even more severe as you make more money, the government will then devalue all the currency that you've kept. You simply need to step outside of this simulation. You need a ruler that they cannot break. You need hard assets that are not easy to create and the government cannot destroy the value of. You need Bitcoin. You need hard assets like gold or real estate, and you need exposure to some of the industries that are going to be supported by the government, such as AI. You need to understand why the system is broken, why it's so hard to get ahead, and the steps you can do with the money you do make to actually break this cycle. With Bitcoin, there's no politician that can change the supply. There's no Molly Orshansky line in the code that makes the economy magically look better. 21 million coins forever. If you don't believe in Bitcoin, you're going to need to put your cash somewhere in an asset that you believe will hold up against the debasement coming to the dollar. because it is coming. We heard from President Trump that they will be bailing out the AI industry. This came in the form of an executive order saying effectively that AI is too big to fail. And this takes away uncertainty from a lot of companies that wonder if the AI companies, the Magnificent Seven, will have enough business to support all of the spending and build out that they're doing with their data centers. Well, we now know that the government will effectively buy that compute from them if there's no actual customer. Therefore, this AI bubble has now been backstopped with your tax dollars and quite possibly with printed money that will devalue your savings even more. This is why the Bitcoin trade is still early. This is why the AI trade is possibly also still very early. And this is why your dollars are at huge risk and why the poverty line has magically exploded from $32,000 up to $140,000 in 2025. This $140,000 per year making people actually poor is one of the scariest statistics I've seen in a very long time. You need to hold assets where the denominator is not worthless. We don't know how many dollars there will ever be. There's an infinite amount. We do know how many Bitcoin there will be. We do know how many shares of certain AI and energy companies there will be. We do know how many houses can even possibly be built in certain areas. We do know that real estate is scarce. We know that there's only so much of it. My personal favorite asset is of course Bitcoin, but there are other scarce assets, and I implore you to break the cycle and understand that if you want to actually elevate yourself above the poverty line, that you need to understand these assets, understand the debasement happening to your currency, and make sure that when the money printer turns on, it works for you, not against you. The 140K poverty line is a symptom of broken money. It's as simple as that. But it only continues because the system relies on every one of your ignorance, that you don't understand what's happening. They rely on you thinking 100K is rich so that you stay quiet. It's called the wealth effect. Now you have the data, you have the proof. Most of you are technically poor, and it doesn't make me happy to say that. So please understand, I'm making this video because I don't believe that you have to stay poor, and I believe the way out is very simple. It's Bitcoin.